I love football.
Desire, hungry, and a lot of times I use the word horny to my players.
Because I said, when we make clean sheet, I pay to everybody a pizza.
No, you have to make a decision in relation to that, because I need to know from you what is the most important thing, if it is to play well or if it is to win matches.
We've shown wonderful character this week.
Back of the net.
You are listening to Back of the Net. Myself here with you on Post Plus Sport. It's Post Plus Sport on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Castbox, and Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to never miss an episode of any of our podcasts, and at Post Plus Sport on Instagram and Twitter. James Fenton with us as always. James, thanks for joining us. It's been about a month since I talked to you. We've made it to episode 3 of Back of the Net, so I think we've done better than anyone expected us to.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. Yeah, it's still going strong, so hopefully it stays that way.
Someday we'll be on episode 100 and we'll be looking back at this thinking, well, remember that time we were on episode 3. But actually thinking of episode 100, that's 100 months, so maybe we won't make it that far.
Right.
Yeah. Looking ahead to there's a bit of international football later in the month with the Euro playoffs and Copa America playoffs. There's a bit of stuff going around the world. We'll talk about those more next week when we know the full Euros and Copa, or next month I should say, when we know the full Euros and Copa America lineup. But just mentioned, we were talking about it was in the middle of the AFCON last time we recorded, and in the end, Ivory Coast, well, they pulled it off. I mean, I don't think any teams ever sacked a manager in the middle of an international tournament and gone on to win that tournament. I haven't done the research, but I don't think that's ever happened before.
No, if they have, then it would have been quite rare. I don't think anyone backed them after watching them in the group stage. Anyone backed them to get through to even the quarters, semi-finals, and they managed to just take every game as it came and got over the line in the end. And yeah, it was good to see. It's always nice to see a host nation going deep and winning it, depending on who they are, obviously. And yeah, that was good. Yeah,
in fairness, it just goes to show you these 20, and we'll see it in the Euros this summer. 24. If you can make it through as one of the best, even if you're the third best team. And I was looking at the way the tournament went. Ivory Coast finished as the fourth best third ranked team. If there were a couple of other results where basically one goal would have eliminated them. There were about 4 teams that if they had scored one more goal, they would have finished above Ivory Coast in that ranking. So it just goes to show you, all you need to do is squeak through the group stage, 24 team format. It gives you that extra chance, and then from there, it's knockout football. Anything can happen.
Yeah, exactly. 3 points, or even in some cases 2 points, can get you over the line in that third place ranking of 4 out of the best 6. So yeah, similar thing could happen in the Euros this year, you would think. I know Ireland benefited in 2016 from being third place after getting 4 points. So yeah, 4 points and you should essentially be through.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because I mean, like, you need to win one, draw one, and maybe not get hammered in the other game, and then you're through. I don't know, is it nearly reducing the group? Like, I like a group stage. You're getting to see all these teams you don't normally get to see at major tournaments. Maybe some of the smaller nations who getting to the tournament itself is the achievement. But at the same time, it nearly reduces it to it doesn't really matter until you get out to the knockout rounds.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Sometimes, yeah, it is good to see those teams you don't get to see very often, and then, but sometimes the groups can go on a bit long, and you're kind of just looking forward to some real jeopardy, I suppose, which you don't really get as much in these group stages anymore.
Copa America is going to be a bit different. It's 16 teams, two spots to finalize there. Copa America is interesting because there's Copa America and the Euros in the same summer is always interesting because a lot of players who play in major leagues throughout Europe, whether it's the Premier League, the Bundesliga, La Liga, a lot of players will have had a long season, played in, gone deep into European competition, had competitive league seasons, and then they'll be playing in a major international tournament. You're going to look at probably, like, you'd expect Brazil and Argentina in the Copa America to be two of the standout sides and go particularly far. You'd expect, the usual suspects in the Euros and maybe a few surprises in both tournaments. So a lot of players are going to be, pretty tired at the start of the season, maybe coming back to pre-season quite late. So it could be a difficult start to the season for teams like Liverpool have Alisson and Nunez, Man City have Ederson, and you look at, like, that's just two teams in the Premier League. Those players could be later coming back, so then suddenly that changes teams' plans, that changes things up for the start of the season, and then suddenly maybe you're 2 or 3 games at the start of the season without any of your star players.
Yeah, but it tends to be most summers where there's somebody's playing a major tournament, or in Asia or Africa, it's winter. I think it's just the nature of international football and club football. The games are non-stop, and a lot of the club managers aren't happy with that, obviously. But it's just part and parcel of it, I suppose. And I'd be in favor of reducing that, I suppose, for the players' sake, because all they're going to get is burnout, and telling the players burn out by the time they're in their mid to late 20s. So you would think that they kind of reduce the number of international tournaments, but then again, it's great for the viewer as well.
Yeah, it is. And but one thing to factor in this season is there's a Club World Cup at the end of next year. So it'll kind of be a lot of basically half the players in the major leagues, more than half, actually, I should say, that's a great drastic understatement, are playing in the Euros, Copa America, short break, back into the leagues, and then I think there are 8 European teams playing in the Club World Cup next season, maybe more even. And that also goes for South American teams, Asian teams, African teams, Oceania teams, North American teams. So suddenly that's going to lead to more burnout. So, there's no shortage of football. Look, we all love watching football, but there probably does need to be something done about the fixture overload. Just to mention, we were talking Club World Cup there. An odd one neither of us are Oceania football experts, I think it's fair to say, but an odd one in their Champions League, in the odd one in their Champions League qualifiers. So how they run their Champions League qualifiers is the bottom 4 associations have a team each in a round robin group, with the top team going through, and then the rest of the associations, the top 2 teams in each group play in playoffs to get through the group stage. Basically, American Samoa, who famously lost by over 30 goals to Australia in a friendly once, their 5th place team in the league went to the qualifiers for them. I did a lot of research on this to see why. Was it because they had won the league in a COVID year? Maybe it was a deferred place for that. Was it a case of did they win something else? Hard to find information on. Basically, they finished 5th in the normal season. Then the season splits into 2. They didn't win a game in the split season and remained 5th. But they were beaten 14-0, 13-0, and 14-0, I believe. So, I mean, it's not great for a tournament for to have a 5th place team qualify for the most prestigious tournament in the Confederation and then get absolutely destroyed. One possible reason that was put forward was by the Sweeper, which is a very good world football outlet, put forward that maybe they were the only team who was prepared to do the traveling. Obviously, there's a lot of traveling in Oceania. It's a load of islands. Maybe they're the only team that had the funding. But just a bit of a bizarre one. I mean, I'm not sure if that would ever happen it would never happen in Europe, where you get like a 5th place team as the nominated team to play in the European Cup. No.
In the case of the big leagues, England or Spain, the 5th place team mightn't even do too bad. But yeah, those minor nations, imagine sending, I don't know, Bows off in the Champions League. I'm not sure it would be that. I'm not sure they'd be that well matched to the opposition there. It reminds me of, do you remember when Tahiti were in the Confederations Cup? Yeah, and they went in as continental champions, obviously, and I think they were beaten 8-0 by Uruguay, 10-0 by Spain, and I think just only 6-1 by Nigeria.
I remember that one very well. They celebrated that one goal. Like it was Yeah, and that for them is winning the World Cup, scoring a
Yeah,
goal at a major international tournament. I mean, outside of their confederation.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a different perspective, I suppose, for those guys.
Yeah.
Um, just mentioned the Club World Cup there. I'd say there's a lot of players for the major clubs in Europe looking at that Club World Cup and thinking, do we have to? They're
Yeah,
like, after a long season, the Euros this summer, it's like a lot of them probably aren't even aware that they have to play that next summer.
I wouldn't be surprised if big European teams send kind of, training squads there, a lot
Mm,
of younger players, a
yeah.
lot of fringe players, unless anyone particularly wants to go. I can't imagine like Real Madrid forcing, their big names to go. I can't imagine Man City well maybe City will want to win it. They like winning trophies, but
Mm,
it just seems like yeah, it's the kind of thing. It probably means more to teams from confederations outside of Europe, really. But yeah, I agree with you.
yeah.
There's that kind of do we have to vibe. It's just it's an unnecessary extension. In theory, it's interesting, but like, does it need to be? Does it need to be this big? Does it need to be a
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
tournament? They're actually keeping the current Club World Cup. I think it's called the Intercontinental Cup now.
Mm,
They're keeping that as well. So like, whoever wins the Champions League this year, whoever wins the Copa
mm,
Libertadores, will have to travel in the middle of the season as well
yeah.
to play in that tournament. So like, there's so much traveling, there's so much so many matches. It seems like you know it needs to be it needs to be put under control, or else we need to
Mm.
start saying, look, you can have 50 players in your squad basically.
Yeah, just looking at the dates for it too, June 15th to July 13th. And that's prime time for money spinning tours around the world for for some of these clubs. So I'm not sure how that's going to line up.
Yeah, it's true. That's usually when clubs will go around to the US, China,
Mm,
Canada, Australia, just making a bit of money, seeing their fans around the world.
yeah.
Um, looking a bit around the world then in terms of around Europe anyway. Just an interesting one came up actually with the Euros in mind. So in Italy, I was watching Napoli held their own in the first leg against Barcelona in the Champions League. They've appointed the current Slovakia coach as manager. Now, I wasn't
Mm,
sure what was going to happen, but yeah, he is still in charge of Slovakia. So basically,
yeah.
he's preparing Slovakia for the Euros and in charge of Napoli, trying to qualify for Champions League. Just a bizarre situation. I assume he only took the job because he was guaranteed that it wouldn't interfere. But like, surely you can't. This isn't a video game. Surely you can't manage an international side and a club side like an international side to a major tournament and a
Mm,
club side that's trying to get to Champions that in the Champions League at the same time. Surely something's got to give here.
yeah, yeah. It has been done in the past. It was a bit more common back in the day. I think Ferguson might have done it. Was he still at Aberdeen when he went to '86 World Cup? He might have
I think
left
so.
them.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe he was. But yeah, it's kind of both those jobs are really club managers talk about how time consuming it is to be a club manager, and if you throw an international club job into the mix there as well, how do they have time to do anything else, or how do they have time to dedicate themselves to to their clubs? The Slovakia manager should be focused solely on the Euros at the moment, as it's only 3 months away, but he has to kind of finish the season with Napoli, who they could probably they're not going to win the Serie A this year or anything, so they could just stick a coach in or someone behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, you're thinking there would probably make more sense because at least an assistant manager or a coach or something would know the players and be able to dedicate all the time to it, and they can
Mm,
go and find a long term manager. A few managerial. We're looking at the managerial merry-go around a little bit. Looks like Thomas Tuchel potentially going to be sacked against Bayern. Potentially by the time this podcast comes out, Xabi Alonso linked with Liverpool, Bayern, everyone else. Surely it makes sense for him to stay at Leverkusen, but Bayern, it just seems to be a bit of a disaster there. Musiala has rejected his a new Bayern contract, so it looks like they'll be losing him. But it's just a bit of a disaster for. I mean, at the same time, like it's one thing saying it's their worst season in over a decade when they've spent that decade winning the league title, but at the same
mm.
time, it looks like they're not going to win a trophy. And for a team like Bayern, um, that's a travesty, really.
Yeah, I'll have to check when's the last time they didn't win a trophy, but I imagine it's couple of decades, maybe. Yeah, it's just gone completely wrong for Tuchel. He doesn't seem to have got the players on side, or if he did have them on side, he didn't have them for very long. And with Leverkusen 10 points clear, it's a massive way back for them now.
Yeah, Leverkusen.
You know,
Yeah, go on.
just it's to see them spend what was 100 million on Harry Kane to win the league. A league they'd already won the last 10 years, and I don't think they're going to profit on that. So it just seemed like a bizarre. It seemed like they wanted Harry Kane. Yeah, scored over 30 goals for them, but it seems like they wanted Harry Kane for the name Harry Kane, I think, and then sell him back to someone in the Premier League in a couple of years for less money.
Yeah, Galactico signing kind of thing. Kind of thing Real Madrid used to do, just bringing a big name to sell jerseys. Might have been that kind of thing. Yeah, it's an interesting one because Bayern, I was looking at, like, they made the champion at the start of the last decade, made the Champions League final in 2010, lost out. 2012, how they lost that Champions League final is beyond me because that team was really good. 2013, really good. We probably don't appreciate how good that Bayern team actually was. Maybe again because they like. And in a way, you could say how good Dortmund were at the time to knock them off their perch, as you say. But that Bayern team 2013 won the treble. 2020 looked like we were going to see a resurgence of that. They won the treble again. I think they won the Super Cup and Club World Cup from there. But it's just kind of gone downhill since when. I mean, it seems odd to say gone downhill when they won the league since winning the Champions League. But just in terms of by their standards, they just haven't been able to really build on, like, we're expecting them to maybe dominate Europe in the way potentially Barcelona did a while back, but it just seems they never really built on that Champions League win.
Yeah. The 2021 you're talking about?
2020, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was a strange one. It was a strange year. But they one-legged quarterfinals and semi-finals in the COVID year. But they got there and they did it, and they had some decent young players around at the time, and it just seems to have gone backwards since then. Let's not forget they almost didn't win the league last year either. They only scraped on the last day thanks to Dortmund's slip up. So this rot has kind of been setting in almost since that 2020 win. So yeah.
And it looks like Alphonso Davies, another one potentially on his way, linked with Real Madrid. Another German manager held talks with Barcelona. Hansi Flick. It's interesting when Barcelona again, Xavi just didn't work out. Wasn't a love affair. People thought, people maybe thinking second coming of Pep Guardiola here. A former Barcelona great going to take over and build this Barcelona team. Again, Barcelona, it's hard to know what to say because it just, no one seems to know what the financial situation is because they're still signing players, but every week we hear about they're in debt. So I'm not sure who they're in debt to. They're obviously very lenient about it. But at the same time, it seems like it's just gone from that kind of team that produces great young players to a team that kind of just has to do a bit of patchwork and sign players from everywhere. But I don't know if Hansi Flick is necessarily going to be one that turns them around.
No. Funny you should name him because he was the manager that won the Champions League with Bayern, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to be just working month by month and picking up loan signings here and there, or players that may be a little bit past their peak. Lewandowski, Gundogan, just slightly past their best years maybe, and just seems to be kind of like Man United in a way, a bit of a graveyard for some of these players. They need to unearth another Messi, which is going to be impossible, you would think. As much as Messi gave them on the pitch, there was also that kind of romance of him being there. The story of Messi was really kind of captivating, and all the teammates around him, Suarez, Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta. Many of them are over in Miami with him now, so they've kind of carried on the story over there. But yeah, they're missing a little bit of star power, I think, and just cobbling together older players with younger players who may not be ready, and a few loan signings. Like Aubameyang was a prime example. Went there, didn't set the world alight, and just went on his way after a few months.
Yeah, he's nearly a player you'd forget was there. Actually, he's with Marseille now, I think. Liverpool obviously looking to replace Jurgen Klopp at the end of the season. Looking at Sporting Lisbon boss Ruben Amorim, Look, he's done a decent job at Sporting. At the same time, though, you just wonder, it's hard to know. It's one of those sink or swim. If someone steps up from that level suddenly to Liverpool, you'd imagine the Premier League's a higher level than the Portuguese league. If they step up from competing at the Portuguese league to a team that's expected to win something in England. Liverpool, look, they made it through their. They kind of have 4 games there where they seem to be running out of players. I mean, they literally had to play the kids in the League Cup final, but they've made it through. Irish goalkeeper Queeveen Kelleher doing a good job, and I mean, it seems like when a manager announces that he's going to leave, it can either make players think, forget it, we'll just down tools and not worry about it, you won't be here next year, or it can make them want to run their legs off and win something for the coach. It seems to very much be the latter for Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool.
Yeah, 100%. I think that says a lot about Klopp as a manager. Players want to play for him. Players want to win for him and with him. And I'm sure there's a lot of players in that dressing room saying this is our chance to send them out on a high. The relationship Klopp has with Liverpool is something that you can't really buy it. As soon as he came in, he just seemed to get them. They got him. It was a great relationship, and I'm not sure that can be replicated by as good as the Sporting Lisbon manager might be. I'm not sure it can be replicated by just dropping him into Anfield. It seemed like Klopp was ready when he came in. He'd managed a similar kind of emotionally similar club in Dortmund, kind of the yellow wall compared to the Kop, and it just kind of seemed like the next logical step for him. But the Sporting Lisbon fella, he needs at least a run in the Champions League with Lisbon or someone to prove that he might be able to win things in the Premier League.
On the other hand, sometimes you bring in an understated manager who not no one's ever heard of, but maybe people aren't as familiar with, and sometimes they can surprise you, and sometimes maybe it's the right move for Liverpool after. Like, you're not going to, like you said, you're not going to replicate what happened with Jurgen Klopp. Like, you're not going to get that perfect match again. Like, in a way, it was nearly more instantaneous than like Alex Ferguson taking over Man United was before my time. But at the same time, it took a few years to bed in. It took a few years to go. Pep Guardiola, Man City, took him a little while to get his message across. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp was instant. It was love first sight kind of thing. But at the same time, sometimes bring in an understated manager, keep things ticking along. Like, it's hard to know what a good season is for Liverpool next year. Is it just get top 4, challenge to win something? I don't know. Is there an expectation for them to win something immediately after Jurgen Klopp leaves?
Yeah, I mean, is a manager going to come in next season and win the league in his first year? With the experience the young players are getting the last few months, a lot of them might be ready to step up, but a couple of extra signings and, maybe he could carry on what Klopp has left him. But, you would imagine there would be a transitional year or 2 years at least.
Interesting title race. Most competitive Premier League title race I think we've had in a while in terms of it hasn't been 3 teams gunning for it for a long time, it feels like. I think 2014, it ended up being Man City and Liverpool, but Chelsea were in the mix there for a while under Jose Mourinho. But it's a hard one to call. We saw. I won't remind you about the weekend, but it looks like Man United are going to have a say in this because they have played City and they recently, and they play they play Liverpool and Arsenal now in the remaining months. It seems as though there's big games left, and it seems like this title race is probably not going to be won by more than 3 or 4 points anyway when it comes down to it.
No, definitely. Looks like it's gone to the wire. 2014 is the most memorable kind of 3-horse race, even though Chelsea dropped out towards the end. But yeah, it's hard to know who's dropping out this time around. Do Arsenal have the quality? I know they're showing it recently against the Leicester teams. Do they have the quality to beat Man City in their upcoming game? If they do, then they're definitely in the mix. But I don't think people are realizing how much City's season rests on the next couple of weeks because they play Liverpool and Arsenal. Both of those teams are capable of beating City. Will they drop 6 points in those games? Unlikely. If they drop, 4 or 3. they could be a long way back for them in terms of this title race, particularly if Liverpool and Arsenal, continue winning into the home stretch. But I think I'm like everyone else. You can just everyone says you can just see City doing it at the end. Particularly if it goes the other way and they beat both of those teams over the next couple of weeks. If they beat Liverpool and Arsenal, then it's pretty much City's title, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, De Bruyne has come back from his injury, and De Bruyne is one of those players. I mean, he gets a lot of appreciation now, but I think when he retires and we're looking back in 10 years' time, we're going to realize he's such a powerful runner, such a good passer. He's just like a natural born football player. And interestingly for him, he was at Chelsea, didn't work out for him at Chelsea, and he had plenty of potential when he was at Chelsea. He looked like he was going to be a superstar from them. Didn't work out. Neither did Salah there. And then, it just happens that two players who were at Chelsea when they were young went on to be very big players for title contenders. But De Bruyne, I think we're going to look at him as certainly of this century anyway, certainly, and needless to say, of the last decade, one of the best midfielders of all time, particularly one of the best midfielders to never win an international trophy, I would argue.
Yeah. Definitely one of the best midfielders of the Premier League era anyway. He's shown that particularly in the last 3 or 4 years. When he's on top of his game, he's arguably the best all-round player, all-round midfielder in the Premier League.
Yeah.
It's fairly remarkable that him and Salah are both at Chelsea, but that's just very Chelsea, isn't it? To kind of have these players and just kind of brush them aside without thinking of like long-term investment. But that's the way Chelsea have always did it under Abramovich. But yeah, they continued to win a couple of leagues and a few cups in the Champions League, and De Bruyne has managed to do that as well. So yeah,
a player that didn't reach his potential was Paul Pogba. 4-year ban now for positive drug tests. So looks like his career at the top level anyway is over, because he's not going to have played. I think it's a ban from professional football anyway. I'm not 100% sure what it encapsulates, but he certainly won't have played at the top level for 4 years. Anyway, in 4 years' time. I look back at 2018 World Cup. He was so good. That final against Croatia, he was so good. He was an all-around midfielder who was working hard, helped by the fact that he had N'Golo Kante, who at the time was probably that best midfield destroyer. Had Matt Tweedy, who was doing that box-to-box role. Pogba could kind of just do that free role. It just never seemed to happen. It was just bizarre. I remember him leaving Man United on a free, thinking that's a bad decision. He's a player with a lot of potential. Seemed to be an attitude thing, clash with Alex Ferguson. Then, he does really well at Juventus. His best position seemed to be in Turin. And then, Man United buy him back for 100 million. And it was just this weird kind of like flashes of greatness. I think he made the team of the year in the Premier League 1 year, but it just didn't work out the same way people expected to, in terms of being consistently good, as it has with someone like De Bruyne.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want to. I've criticized Pogba over the years, as everyone has. Did question his dedication, how much did he actually care about Man United, as much as he claimed to when he first arrived back. But his quality at his highest level was never really doubted, and he showed that in 2018 and in flashes, like you said, for Man United. But the relationship with Man United was broken long before he left, I think. They just probably couldn't get anyone to pay a transfer fee for him, and it's just his career seems to have gotten just slid downhill even since leaving United. And I think he's planning on appealing, but it does look like his career at top level is over.
It was a bizarre one. In hindsight, and it's easy to say now, going back to United was, like, it's easy to say now, was a wrong decision, but would he have done any better anywhere else? Because it just seems like, talent-wise, absolutely could have been a Ballon d'Or winner, but he just didn't seem to have that attitude for top-level professional football or consistently. And he tended to do it for France a lot, but it just didn't work. I don't know. I'm trying to think, is there a club he would have fitted in better at than United? Maybe a little bit better, but would he reach his potential? It just seems like he was kind of destined to not reach his potential.
Yeah, so United, the post-Ferguson years at United has been just been a terrible environment all around. Not many players have gone there and kicked on or got any better. Fernandez, arguably one of the only ones. But yeah, it's where you have succeeded elsewhere. I don't know. I guess he would have, PSG. He could have kicked PSG onto a Champions League maybe. Would he have fit in at Real Madrid as kind of a kind of pre-Jude Bellingham? Who knows? But yeah, that that transfer just looks worse every time you look back on it.
PSG is an interesting one, yeah, because it would have been just to finish up, it would have been it was kind of that superstar model of they had Mbappe, Neymar, Messi. Could Pogba fit into that? Would he have been happy to share the spotlight? Maybe. But yeah, it could have been. It could have been the right fit, a very glamorous move where other players around him are doing the dirty work, and he can kind of have. You'd expect him, Mbappe, Neymar, Messi to be able to kind of do whatever they want in terms of on the pitch. But it's an interesting one because PSG were very much that superstar model. That's changed now. It was probably the superstar model because Qatar hosted the World Cup and obviously own PSG essentially. So they wanted to, it was a branding thing. But now they seem to be more investing in young talent. Mbappe, like he's leaving, he's going to Real Madrid. We know that at the end of the season, it seems like this transfer saga. It's almost like the new Wesley Sneijder to Manchester United kind of. It's just been a never-ending transfer links, but this is actually happening. So it's interesting to know now, how should PSG use Mbappe? Should they use him? I mean, he's still there. He still could potentially bring them silverware. I mean, it seems like it's like it's not going to make a difference now if you play him, and it seems like there's nothing to gain from not playing him as such, in the sense that he's leaving anyway. You may as well maximize your investment. At the same time, you could argue, do you just give other players a go who are going to be there next season? So it's an interesting situation. It seems like that relationship's a little bit broken now. It seems to have gone a bit toxic, but definitely going to be a Galactico alongside Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo. So it's just an interesting one. Just finally to get your thoughts on how the PSG use Mbappe. Do they play him? Do they say right, sit at home and just do nothing, or what do they do with him?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, does anyone, if they don't play him, they're still going to win League One, right? They're a good few points ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess just kind of let him just slowly make his long goodbye, but obviously play him in the Champions League. If he somehow gets them through the knockout stage, it helps him through the knockout stage, and then there's the photograph of him lifting the Champions League trophy. That's the iconic image that PSG want. But then again, if they're already resigned that he's leaving, it just seems like a toxic kind of end to the whole thing.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of nearly ends justifies the means. If they don't play him domestically again, but only save him for Champions League, they go on to win the Champions League. Then it's like, well, PSG, they made Mbappe, they made him the superstar he is. At the end of the day, if they're probably like, they look like they're safe enough through to the quarterfinals. If they get knocked out in the quarterfinals and they're going to win the league, but if they fail to win the cup, say, then it's kind of like, just there you go, bad end. Just it's nearly that Pogba thing of just go now, just leave. So it's an interesting one. James, thanks for joining us on Back in the Net. Hopefully chat to you again. I know you're busy working away on League of Ireland stuff.
Yeah. That's back into the swing of it now. I was doing socials last night, so yeah, it was actually an entertaining evening.
Yeah, it was. I was Derry Shamrock Rovers potential. Too early to maybe say top of the table clash, but potentially a good one. And Shelbourne looked the real deal too.
Definitely, I was really glad that Derry and Shamrock Rovers was actually really quite entertaining, because a lot of the TV games haven't been that good. So yeah, it was really good to hopefully get a decent national audience on that last night.
Yeah, it's a shame when there are good games in the League of Ireland, Premier Division, First Division, Women's Premier Division, but it's unfortunate when the game that's picked to be. Not a lot of games are televised.
Yeah,
a lot of them are streamed on LYTV. Not a lot of them are televised. So it's a real shame when the game that's on TV isn't great, because there's a lot of people who don't follow the league. Maybe they're
Yeah.
casting an eye on it, and they'll just say, "Oh, this is no good. Forget about it." It was a generally very good game. And we'll be bringing out our male equivalent, you could call it, of Pell and Back. So we're going to have our men's Irish football podcast either side of the international break. One episode before Ireland's friendlies, one episode after, and we'll be talking about League of Ireland, Irish players abroad, and the senior international side. And you can get Pell and Back this Thursday, out every Thursday, covering Irish women's football. And don't forget, there's the women's equivalent of this show, which is Vanishing Phone Monthly, which is our monthly magazine show covering women's world football all around the world. James Fenton, thanks very much. Do you want to plug your social medias?
You can get me in Fenton James 16 if you want, but there's not that entertaining.
No, follow James on social media and maybe in real life too.
Fenton James 16 on Twitter/X, and Fenton James _16 on Instagram.
Okay. Remember that underscore. That underscore is that separates you from the. Who knows who the other James? Who knows who James Fenton 16 is without the underscore? I mean, you could be crazy. I mean, don't confuse those two. But you can follow us, Post Buzz Sport, on Twitter/X and Instagram, and you can subscribe to YouTube, Castbox, Spotify, and Google Podcasts to get all our podcasts and get notified for them. And postbuzz.sport.blog, we're doing a bit of renovation work. Should be up and running completely by the end of the month. A bit of renovation work on our website. So still a bit of a building site, a tidier building site than last week. But you can get all our stuff there. James, I'll let you go. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening, and enjoy the football.